What's up, Panthers Nation? We're back today with another video. This is a second look at the Panthers schedule for this year. Now, because I normally do a video taking a second and third look at the roster and the schedule and do predictions before the season starts, we skipped the second one, so we are at prediction number 3, technically. But we're going to call it number 2 for the year. We're just going to skip the second one. So, and I normally do that second one at about halfway through preseason after training camp is over. That's typically when I do it. I was loaded up with schedule, so, it is what it is. I could only get so much done in so much time. So let's dig into this crazy schedule one more time before the season starts. Now, if you guys remember, the first prediction video I put out was an 8-8 video prediction, and it lined up perfectly with an ESPN analyst prediction of 8-8. Exact same games, exact same wins and losses. Now this is where it gets interesting. By about middle of preseason, you're starting to get a better look at these rosters. You're starting to get a better look at these players, get an idea of who they are, what they can do, what they can't do. That's why that second prediction video should have been top priority for me, and I just never did get to it. But we're going to do it now. We've gotten a full look at these players now after preseason is over. You're looking at what injuries are out there, what schedules are out there, who's playing, who's not, who's retiring, Andrew Luck, and who isn't. So, let's dive into this. And this is after you look at, all the contracts that have been signed or not signed. So let's see. You got the Rams first. The Rams are a very, very interesting team. I did not get a chance to scout them in preseason. I wish I could have. 2 to 3 years ago, before I started this channel, I was able to watch some of these games that were randomly on TV, and I got a chance to check them out. Some of these teams before they actually started the regular season, so I had a better idea of what the full rosters looked like. Alright, so I don't have that luxury now because my schedule is so jam-packed full. I checked out what I could. So we have the Rams at home first game. You're looking at, as of right now, Bruce Irvin, if he doesn't go, Brian Burns comes in and starts. You're looking at a healthy Cam Newton that's going to start, mostly. I say mostly because we don't know what his health records actually are at this point. A healthy Greg Olsen, Luke is still healthy, but a weak offensive line. Well, an average to below average offensive line going into this. So, how will that impact the game? I predict that we're going to lose to the Rams. I'm still calling that a loss. It could go the other way. It may not. A lot of crazy things happen in game openers. You just never know. You never know. But I would be willing to bet that the Rams are going to be favored in Vegas odds for that game. Probably by about 4 to 7 points. That's my guess. Because of their stronger roster, they look stronger. Their depth is really, really good. Now, our depth is looking pretty good too. After this preseason, you know, if I was to do the update video during the middle of preseason, I would say that these odds are correct by Vegas. By my prediction, I would say that that would probably be right. We still haven't seen the actual odds yet. I haven't looked at them yet, but I would say that's generally correct. But if you were judging it by about halfway through preseason, I would say that spread would go a little bit higher than that. Probably 10 points. Just generally speaking. Mainly because you haven't seen the full look at all the starters for the Panthers. You haven't seen... There's a lot of factors involved. A lot of them. You haven't seen the injuries. You haven't seen what these certain players can do, what they can't do, going into that starting 53-man roster. You don't know what you're looking at. But I'm still calling it a close loss, though. I think the Rams have a little bit more than we do. However, we have a healthy Luke Kuechly, and that's going to make a big, big difference. Big difference. We may not have Thomas Davis, but we still have Luke. And Luke by himself is a tank. So just keep that in mind, folks. He's essentially the chess master of our defense. He knows what he's doing. And he'll get it done. The problem is, will everybody else execute to their full potential? On defense, I believe so. Yes. Offensively, a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks. I know what Greg Olsen is going to do. I know what Christian McCaffrey is going to do. You know that Cam is not going to be completely sound in the brain. He's a few fries short of a Happy Meal when he's trying to make decisions on the field. But, for the most part, he does get it done. I will say that. But, you know what all the stars are going to do. It's the line. The line is where the question marks really, really start to take form. Can they handle it? Can they handle that defensive pressure? And again, remember, we're facing the defensive coordinator that faced us in the Super Bowl in 2015. Keep that in mind, folks. This is not going to be fun and games out there. We're going to have to really bring it if we want to fool this guy. And the last time we had a weak line in 15, it did not end well. So I have got a lot of questions concerning that line, and I'm not looking forward to that Rams defense pressure-wise facing that Panthers O-line. So I got a bad feeling that Cam might go down in that game. If I was Ron Rivera, I would play it safe. And I would start with Kyle Allen just to be safe. You still have Cam Newton available. No one's saying you can't use him. But I would start Kyle Allen for that game for that reason. Because of that pass rush. Now, it may not end in a win. But I'm going to tell you, this team does not give up. That defense will keep creating opportunities. And as of right now, the Bears and the Packers are playing right now as I'm recording this. And it's, the last time I checked, it was within 10 points. So, it's going to be a defensive struggle between those two right now. And we play the Packers later on. So keep that in mind. Bearing that in mind, I think our defense can do the same thing to a lot of these teams. Now the question is, can we put points up on the board? This 3-4 system relies on that offense. If we can't put points up on the board, we're in big trouble. And I don't think we're going to be able to keep up with the Rams. I really don't. I think they're going to score 10 more points than we can keep up with them. And it's not going to end in a W that time. Moving on, the Bucks win. That's at home. Still calling that a win. Cardinals, I'm still calling that a win. Cardinals look lost right now. They did add a few pieces, but I still think they're quite lost. And they're not sure exactly who they are and what their identity is just yet. We'll see if they come up with an identity by week 3, but I doubt it. Texans. The Texans, with a healthy Deshaun Watson, are scary. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's one of the few teams that actually is under the radar scary in the NFL right now. If you consider they got 9 wins, even without Watson, they were right in the hunt. And you still got J.J. Watt in the backfield on defense. Granted, he was very, very quiet last year. But when he wakes up, he is a freight train. So I would not want to face him. That's going to be really, really tough to get anything by him once we start playing the Texans. Then you've got the Jags. As far as the Texans, I'm going to say that is probably going to be a 10-point spread, just like the Rams game. Favored towards the Texans because of Watson. Now, if Watson stays healthy and he's got a decent line, that 10-point spread holds up. If not, things start to get interesting when we go into that game. And it depends on who we have healthy and available and who we don't when we go into there. I predict that J.J. Watt is probably going to have another quiet year. But don't underestimate him. He is getting older, but don't underestimate him. He's still a sleeping giant, and you don't want to wake him up. Because he will wreak havoc if you wake him up. But I'm going to call that Texans game a loss still. I don't think we can pull it off. Jags. The Jags have lost a lot of crucial pieces, but they built up some pieces too. They aren't what they were during the 2016 year. So, what I'm going to say is a win on that one for now. I feel like we have enough pieces to get that W. It's going to be a small scoring game. I'd say within 25 points for both teams on the scoreboard. Under 25 points for both teams. But you know, I believe that'll be a W though. Bucks after that win. Niners win. Titans. The Titans will sneak up on some teams. Mariota is a decent quarterback. He's not, everybody likes to throw Mariota under the bus and say he's below average or he's a garbage quarterback. And I feel like he's got more in the tank than he's showing. I would not underestimate this guy. Luke Kuechly knows, man. He studies these tapes. If Luke tells you that Mariota is dangerous, you should take him for his word. But honestly, I'm not going to say he's dangerous yet. The Titans will sneak up on some teams. They've got a few playmakers. I ended up putting a few of those playmakers on my fantasy team, but, we'll see. We'll see how they do. Don't expect that division race to just come between the Texans and whoever, Be aware that the Titans will be in that mix. They'll be looking for a wild card spot. They won't take the division, but I'm going to tell you, they might take the wild card. So be looking. But they've got to get past the Chiefs and the Raiders to do it. Those are your two main ones. But honestly, I'm going to call that a win because of how strong we usually play around mid-season. We usually get some of these players back. After the bye week, we usually have a couple of these guys back on, healthy and on the field and producing. Sometimes a couple of them end up on injured reserve still for a couple of weeks or PUP. But I'm not entirely sure that we can handle them. I believe we can handle them. So we go to the Packers. I'm still calling that Packers game a loss. Rodgers is still going to be healthy. You can bet on that mid-season. He's still going to be throwing darts. So our defense has to be ready. And I like what I saw. The extra effort from our corners. Deflecting passes. Not just covering wide receivers, but deflecting passes. Reaching their arm around and knocking these balls down. That's encouraging. We haven't seen that since 2015. So I'm very, very happy with that. And that, you saw that first string, second string, third string. So that's really encouraging. You saw it from all three. And we're looking forward to more of that against Rodgers. Unfortunately, we don't have the guy that picked him off in 2015, Thomas Davis, anymore. But I'll tell you what, we still got a couple of playmakers in the secondary that could really make him rethink his throws. So that's going to get to be really interesting by third quarter, where we're at in that game. But I think we do lose that game in a tight one in Lambeau. We usually don't have that much success in Lambeau, so I'm not expecting a win there. Falcons, week 11, at home. Here's the thing. That Falcons game all depends on the offensive line for the Falcons. We know their defense is weak. We know it's going to be a shootout. By then, we should have our offense fixed. Hopefully, we'll have our offensive line fixed. I can't promise anything, but hopefully we'll have it fixed by then. But right now, they are not up to NFL standard. Not at all. And if they face any amount of pressure whatsoever from even average guys right now, they will crumble like glass. And that's not encouraging. You still got Greg Little in concussion protocol, last I heard. So, or physically unable to perform. I'm not sure exactly what his status is. I think they released that today. So, as far as I know, he will not be on the line. Which begs the question, who will? That I don't know for sure. There's 3 or 4 that could take his spot on the line, on the depth chart. We'll just see which one pops up. But I'm not encouraged going against the Falcons how that's going to turn out. Because it's going to be a shootout. You already know Matt Ryan just throws darts. He throws absolute darts. And if you're not ready for him, those wide receivers will burn you. I mean, just ask Action Jackson. He knows. He knows, man. In that first year. He got burnt crispy in that first year by a couple of those Falcon throws. So, you can't... you got to play Matt Ryan like you play Aaron Rodgers. Except for the fact that Matt Ryan is just that much more accurate than Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. So you have to be really, really tight on those coverages and be looking for the ball. I'm not expecting pass deflections, but if you get them, all the more power to you if you're a corner or a linebacker in that game. And against the Saints as well. You're dealing with Breeze. You're dealing with, I believe Ted Ginn's still on that team, right? You still got to deal with Ted Ginn too. And he's not a playground picnic either. So, this is not going to be a fun year for us. I don't think. As far as that Falcons game, like I said, it depends on the Falcons line that's protecting Matt Ryan. With a healthy line, Matt Ryan is scary good. You saw it in 2016. You know how good he is with a proper line and healthy line. Without it, he's as good as he's been over the past 10 years. So, and those numbers don't quite match up with Breeze. However, that doesn't make him any less dangerous. Be on your guard when we get to that game. Secondary especially. Trey Boston, I'm looking at you. You took some plays off against Matt Ryan last year, and I was not pleased with it. The last time this man was on our roster against the Falcons, he took plays off. I didn't mean last year, I meant the last time he was on the roster against them. So, Um, Thankfully, Captain Wonderland isn't there to take plays off as well, So, hopefully, we can get this back together and start making some plays on D. Get these avenue back together. Start doing what we do best on defense. Uh, but I'm gonna call that game a loss for right now. Saints in the dome. For right now, I'm gonna call that a loss. So, Redskins win at home. Falcons in the dome in Atlanta. Uh, we haven't had much success there. So I'm going to call that a loss. And I'm going to change up Week 11 Falcons at home to a win. I think early on we have a shot. Early on we have a shot. More of a shot than we do late season. Because late season they start making that push and they start trying to get that division. So, and they bring everything at you, including the kitchen sink, when you get into December. So you have to be ready. Or you will lose that game. Ask countless teams that have gone into Atlanta, into that dome. They know. Ask the Saints. They know. They know better than anybody. You know how many games have been on the line for division titles in the Georgia Dome before it became the Mercedes-Benz Dome now? There's at least half a dozen where the Falcons just start ramping up the score on defenses, particularly the Saints' defenses of the past. So, I don't like my odds. I don't like our odds going into that Mercedes-Benz Dome in December. And I think this whole December, we play well in December thing is a myth. I think it's a myth. That started up during the Gettleman era. And, we didn't really have everything going for us going into those final games. But we just somehow pulled it out of the hat. Some of those games. And it just amazed me. But yeah, I do think that was a 2-year myth that I don't think will happen again. 2 or 3 year myth. But yeah, records in the dome not good against the Falcons. Seahawks, they're gonna bring it. They're gonna bring everything in the kitchen sink until the clock hits triple zeros. That's just how the Seahawks do things. That's how their coach does things, man. So, if you don't bring it for all 4 quarters, it doesn't matter if that roster is not top tier or not anymore. They will still find ways to hurt you. Especially if they know your weaknesses. And especially if they know your weakness is the offensive line, you're in big trouble. They still have some pass rushers on that team. And now, we get to the main event, Week 16 against the Colts. Here we go. Andrew Luck's retirement. I don't know that much about the backup quarterback. I've been trying to learn as much as I can with a little bit of time that I have. And honestly, I haven't learned that much, to be honest with you. What I do know of him is he was a quarterback at NC State. And from what little I did see of him, it was against Clemson. my favorite team in college football. And he did rattle us a little bit, but not to the point where it was a problem. But he did get some passes in there. And I'm surprised he was able to get through our secondary. But you have to consider at the time Clemson's secondary wasn't the best out there. We had some weaknesses at that time when Jacoby Brissett was quarterback. So, when you go back and look at his college highlights, you have to look at him with a grain of salt. That brings us to how is he gelling with the offensive line? How is he gelling with the wide receivers, the quarterback, the tight ends? And is he protected enough to where he won't get hurt? Andrew Luck had a huge history of getting hurt behind that terrible Colts offensive line until they started rebuilding it last year. Now, you're looking at a Colts line that is a little bit stronger than last year. I can't promise you that it's strong enough to protect Brissett, but we'll see. As of right now, I'm calling that game a win. However, I called it a loss earlier on in a prior video. Now I'm calling it a win because of Brissett. And had I done the mid preseason look, I would have called it a win at that point because that's pretty much when Luck retired, as far as I remember. So, last game, Saints at home. You already know that's a very, very dangerous game for us. And if we're playing for the division, it's even scarier. When we have a chance at the division lead and taking the division crown in that last game against the Saints, it usually does not end well. Honestly, records are about 50-50. So it could go either way. That's a scary game for us. And I have no idea who we're going to be playing, who we're not going to be playing, what's going to happen in that game, who's going to be healthy, who's going to do what. That game is just going to be a total chaotic tailspin. So we'll see how that one turns out. That one's floating up in the air for me. I'm going to call it a loss right now. I don't think we take the division. I think we fight for a